Late one night, Richard Carter, CEO of Carter Hale Consulting, sat alone in his home office, the glow of his laptop casting sharp shadows across the room. An anonymous email had just arrived, succinct but unsettling. The company was being infiltrated by people who lacked the skills to earn their positions, yet had somehow slipped in through connections. Richard's brow furrowed. Favoritism, nepotism, and manipulation. This was not how he had built the firm. He prided himself on meritocracy, and the idea that someone was gaming the system ignited a storm of worry in him. He reread the message, each word pressing like a personal challenge. Who could be trusted? Who among his employees was bending the rules? And most importantly, how could he protect the integrity of the company? As a father, his mind immediately went to his daughter Sophia. She had recently graduated, full of drive and intelligence, eager to make her mark. Richard knew that merely trusting internal audits or HR reports wouldn't uncover the whole truth. He needed someone inside, someone capable of observing without drawing attention. The plan formed in his mind. Sophia would join the company, but not as herself. She would adopt the guise of a young woman from a small Midwestern town, appearing to have no connections, no influence, nothing that could draw suspicion. It was a test, yes, but also a mission to preserve the company's values. Sophia, unaware of the specifics, would think she was simply starting a new job. In reality, she was stepping into a carefully orchestrated experiment designed by the man she had always admired most. The next morning, Sophia walked through the sleek glass doors of Carter Hale. The lobby buzzed with the precise rhythm of corporate America, polished floors, reflecting fluorescent lights, the scent of fresh coffee drifting through the air, and the steady hum of conversations, punctuated by keyboard clicks. She smiled politely, extended handshakes, memorized names, and tried not to stand out too much. At first, it seemed she had the upper hand. Colleagues greeted her warmly, offering guidance and advice, with smiles that seemed genuine. They assumed she had pulled strings to get the position, some connection lurking behind her quiet demeanor. Their flattery was subtle but persistent, and Sophia played along, careful to observe rather than react. She learned quickly that appearances were deceiving. Every compliment hid an expectation, every friendly gesture had a motive. Then she noticed him, Samuel Thompson, an older employee whose calm demeanor set him apart from the rest. Unlike the others, Sam offered advice without judgment or suspicion. He had been with the company for decades, seeing the rise and fall of countless employees, and he understood office politics in a way few could. His guidance was quiet but steady, a lifeline amid the sea of hidden agendas. Sophia sensed immediately that he was someone she could trust, a mentor figure who would help her navigate this delicate terrain. By the end of her first day, Sophia returned to her small downtown apartment, her mind racing. Names, faces, alliances, and hidden tensions swirled in her thoughts. She realized that while the flattery of her peers was a performance, Sam's support was genuine. And somewhere deep inside, she felt the first spark of determination. This mission, orchestrated by her father, was more than a test. It was the first step into a world where she would have to rely on her wits, her courage, and the few people she could truly trust. As the city lights flickered through her window, Sophia understood one thing clearly: the game had begun and she was ready to play. The game she had stepped into was only beginning to reveal its rules. The days following Sophia's first week at Carter Hale Consulting brought a subtle but unmistakable shift. The warm smiles and helpful guidance that had greeted her initially began to waver. Sophia noticed it first in the hushed whispers that stopped whenever she entered a room, in the slightly forced politeness of her peers, and in the small yet deliberate inconveniences piled onto her desk. Her colleagues had assumed she had powerful connections, a daughter of influence who could not be challenged. That illusion crumbled the moment they realized she was just Sophia Carter, the girl from a small town, unconnected and unassuming. Almost overnight, the office's atmosphere changed. Tasks that were once routine were now heavy and burdensome. Menial jobs, tight deadlines, and last-minute changes were dumped onto her. It wasn't overt cruelty, but the subtle, relentless pressure was impossible to ignore. Sophia felt the sting of their judgment and the unfairness of it all. Every glance, every comment carried a silent accusation. "You're here by luck, not skill. You don't belong." At times, the frustration bubbled up, but she reminded herself of the bigger purpose behind her presence. She was here to observe, to gather evidence, to see the truth of the company's inner workings. Losing her temper or reacting too strongly would only validate their biases. Among the shifting loyalties, however, there was one constant: Samuel Thompson. Sam's calm demeanor and quiet confidence became a refuge for Sophia amidst the subtle hostility. He had watched her navigate the office's unspoken politics, recognizing her capability, her intelligence, and her unwavering sense of fairness. He began offering guidance not just on work processes, but on survival, how to interpret body language, how to read the office's hidden hierarchies, and how to respond to veiled challenges without compromising her integrity. It wasn't long before Sophia encountered her first real test. A critical report needed to be prepared by the end of the day, a project many of her colleagues were secretly hoping she would fail. Her peers whispered among themselves, questioning whether she could handle the pressure, eager to see her stumble. Sophia felt the weight of expectation not from her superiors, but from the silent, judgmental eyes of those around her. The challenge was relentless. Data that should have been organized was incomplete. Some of her coworkers withheld key information, while others offered help that was more distracting than useful. Every step required careful navigation, one wrong decision, and she risked exposing herself to ridicule or suspicion. Her frustration and indignation grew, but she pushed herself harder, drawing on the determination that had carried her through college internships and every difficult challenge she had faced before. Through the day's chaos, Sam remained a steady anchor. He quietly provided the missing pieces, suggested alternative approaches, and reassured her that her ability would speak louder than the cynicism of others. By the time the report was completed, Sophia realized something important: the office politics, the whispering, the veiled hostility. These were obstacles she could overcome. With careful observation and the right allies, she could not only survive, but thrive. As the office emptied that evening, Sophia sat at her desk, heart pounding, mind racing with analysis. The smiles of last week had vanished, replaced by guarded glances and whispered critiques. But she had adapted. She had survived her first test under pressure, and in the process, she'd begun to understand the true dynamics of Carter and Hale. Sophia glanced at Sam, who simply nodded with that quiet, knowing smile. She realized she was no longer just a newcomer in the office. She was becoming a player in a much larger game. And in that moment, she felt the spark of anticipation. If the first challenge was this intense, what lay ahead would demand every ounce of her intelligence, courage, and patience. With the first test behind her, Sophia's eyes opened to the deeper game at play. The office at Carter and Hale had begun to feel like a chessboard, each colleague a piece moving according to their own hidden agenda. Sophia, now more attuned to the subtle shifts in loyalty and the unspoken rules of the workplace, realized that surviving alone was not enough. To fulfill the mission her father had set for her and to uncover the truth behind the anonymous tip, she needed proof. Day by day, she started noticing patterns. Certain projects were consistently assigned to less qualified employees' deadlines mysteriously shifted, and internal reports often contradicted each other. Sophia's meticulous note-taking and quiet observations became her secret arsenal. Every misplaced file, every unexplained approval, every whispered meeting in the hallway was a potential clue. Her partnership with Sam deepened. Over lunch breaks and after hours in the dimly lit conference room, he guided her on how to interpret the subtle signs of manipulation. "Watch who talks first and who stays silent," he advised one afternoon, tapping a finger on a spreadsheet that didn't add up. "Notice the hesitation. The people who act like they're helping are often the ones hiding something." Sophia found herself opening up to Sam in ways she hadn't expected. Beyond mentoring, their conversations became a rare escape from the office's calculated hostility. They shared stories of past successes and failures, strategies for navigating tricky situations, and even personal anecdotes that humanized the sterile corporate environment. Sam's experience and steady presence were invaluable, and slowly Sophia realized that trust was forming between them, not just professional trust, but genuine friendship. But the deeper Sophia delved, the more resistance she faced. Her colleagues, sensing her growing competence and the subtle bond with Sam, began to act against her more openly. Projects that were previously assigned randomly now came with hidden pitfalls. Emails went unanswered, instructions were purposefully vague, and subtle snubs accompanied every casual conversation. Their smiles had returned, but there was an edge, a silent threat, laced into every compliment. One particular incident highlighted the intensifying tension. A critical client presentation required Sophia to compile data from multiple departments, but several of her peers deliberately delayed sending essential reports. When she confronted them politely, they feigned ignorance, their eyes glinting with quiet amusement at her persistence. Sophia's frustration surged, but she bit back her words, determined not to show weakness. Instead, she leaned on Sam's guidance, who suggested alternative sources and taught her how to gather evidence without drawing attention. As days turned into weeks, Sophia's collection of documents, emails, and internal memos grew. Patterns became undeniable. Favoritism, manipulation, and negligence were embedded deep within the company's processes. Each piece of evidence added weight to the anonymous tip, and each revelation fueled Sophia's resolve. She began to see not only the unfairness, but also the potential for justice. Through it all, the bond with Sam remained her anchor. He celebrated her small victories and offered quiet reassurance during setbacks, reminding her that patience and strategy were just as important as skill. Their camaraderie became a source of strength, a counterbalance to the increasing hostility around her. Sophia started to realize that while the office could be ruthless, loyalty and integrity were not lost, they were simply hidden, waiting to be recognized. By the end of the third week, Sophia felt a shift within herself. The office's undercurrents of deceit no longer intimidated her. They sharpened her focus. Each challenge, each sly obstruction, only confirmed her belief that the company's values needed defending, and that with Sam by her side, she could navigate the treacherous waters of corporate politics and uncover the truth her father had been warned about. Weeks of careful observation had prepared her for this moment, the moment to confront the hidden corruption within the office. Weeks of meticulous observation and evidence gathering had led Sophia Carter to a decisive moment. She had compiled emails, project files, and internal reports exposing favoritism, manipulation, and incompetence among her colleagues. Confident in the accuracy of her findings, she submitted everything to her immediate superiors, trusting the company's chain of command to act. The response was swift and devastating. Within hours, Sam Thompson, the wise and loyal mentor who had guided her through countless office traps, was suspended and terminated without explanation. The office erupted with whispers and quiet celebrations. Those who had long undermined him the very colleagues who had whispered behind his back, delayed projects, and subtly sabotaged Sophia could barely contain their delight. He finally got what he deserved. One whispered a smirk spreading across their face. All those years thinking he was untouchable. And now he's out. Sophia watched silently, her expression unreadable. Her heart ached for Sam, but she had anticipated this moment. The gloating of the naysayers set the perfect stage for what was coming next. She waited, letting the smug satisfaction of her colleagues settle fully before making her move. Then, with deliberate poise, Sophia removed her jacket, straightened her posture, and stepped forward. Her voice rang clearly calm, but carrying undeniable authority. "You've all underestimated me." A stunned silence swept the room. Sophia's gaze locked on each smirking face, and she continued her tone, deliberate and commanding. "I am Sophia Carter, daughter of Richard Carter, CEO of Carter Hale Consulting." Time seemed to freeze. Eyes widened, mouths opened, and the smug faces of the office sycophants drained of color. Some froze, completely unable to form words. Others stammered weak excuses. The arrogance that had fueled their celebration only moments ago dissolved instantly into sheer terror. Sophia's presence dominated the room. Every movement, every word radiated authority. She continued, "Sam Thompson is one of the most loyal, competent, and invaluable employees this company has ever had. Anyone who undermines him undermines the very foundation of this firm. That ends now." The contrast was striking Sophia's calm, commanding aura against the panic and shock of those who had believed themselves untouchable. The office that had been a stage for their triumph moments ago was now a theater of fear and awe. With a precise gesture, Sophia signaled for Sam's reinstatement. "Your record is restored, Sam. And let this serve as a reminder, competence, loyalty, and integrity will always prevail over deceit and manipulation." Sam blinked in disbelief, a mixture of relief and astonishment washing over him. Sophia's quiet smile reassured him all the doubt, all the injustice had been swept away. Meanwhile, the once haughty naysayers trembled, realizing the magnitude of their miscalculation. The satisfaction they had felt at Sam's dismissal had evaporated, replaced by the realization that the small-town girl they had underestimated was not only capable, but also the CEO's daughter, the ultimate authority in the room. Their fear was total, their humiliation complete. By the end of the day, the balance of power had shifted. Sam's contributions were recognized, his loyalty rewarded with a higher position, and the guilty parties disciplined appropriately. The office, once filled with whispers of manipulation and deceit, now respected merit and integrity above all. Sophia had delivered justice, restored loyalty, and shown that underestimating talent and honesty came at a steep price. With justice delivered, the office slowly exhaled the tension, giving way to quiet respect and renewed trust. The office of Carter and Hale felt different now. The tension that had clung to every corner for weeks had lifted, replaced by an air of quiet respect and cautious optimism. The once smug naysayers kept their distance, aware that any misstep could draw attention and accountability. Meanwhile, Sophia and Sam moved through the space with a newfound ease, their bond strengthened by the trials they had endured together. Sophia found herself reflecting on everything that had happened. What had started as a mission to uncover wrongdoing had evolved into something far more meaningful, a testament to resilience, trust, and the quiet power of integrity. Sam had been her guide, her mentor, and her friend through every subtle trap and every hidden agenda. And now, after the dramatic upheaval in the office, their friendship had become unshakable. One afternoon, after the office had emptied, Sophia and Sam remained in the conference room. The sun filtered through the tall windows, casting warm light across the polished tables. Sam, a little older now in appearance from the stress and uncertainty of the past weeks, looked at her with a mixture of amusement and relief. "You know," he began, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "I never thought I'd survive that week." Sophia laughed softly, shaking her head. "You did more than survive, Sam. You thrived. And more importantly, you taught me what real loyalty and courage look like." Sam chuckled, leaning back in his chair. "I only showed you a fraction of it. You did the hard part, facing the board, gathering the evidence, and staying calm when everyone else was losing theirs. That was all you." They shared a moment of quiet, the kind that needed no words. It was a rare peace after the storm, a calm that made them both appreciate the strength and trust that had developed between them. In the days that followed, Sophia often found herself seeking Sam's company, not just for guidance, but for conversation, laughter, and shared reflections. The office was no longer a battlefield, it was a space where competence and respect ruled. Sophia's father, Richard Carter, stopped by occasionally, a proud smile crossing his face whenever he saw them working side by side. He had orchestrated the mission, but he also understood that the real triumph was in how Sophia and Sam had grown together. Their bond had been forged in the fire of adversity, tempered by honesty and loyalty, and emerged unbroken. The formerly tense corridors now felt lighter. Employees moved with a cautious respect, and those who had once schemed and plotted had learned that arrogance and deceit could never outmatch true skill and integrity. Sam's reinstatement and promotion had become a symbol for everyone. Merit and dedication would always have their place. One evening, as Sophia and Sam packed up their things, she looked at him with genuine affection. "Thank you, Sam, for everything. I couldn't have done it without you." Sam smiled, the years of worry and tension fading from his face. "No, Sophia. You couldn't have done it without yourself. And besides," he gestured toward the office, now calm and orderly, "we did it together. That's what matters." As they walked out of the building, the city lights beginning to glow around them, Sophia felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The chaos, the challenges, and the moments of doubt had all led to this justice, had been served, the office's integrity restored, and a friendship that would last a lifetime firmly in place. For Sophia and Sam, the mission had ended, but the journey of trust, camaraderie, and shared respect was just beginning. And in that quiet, glowing moment, they knew that no challenge, no matter how daunting, could break the bond they had forged. The storm had passed, and in its wake, a lasting peace and warmth filled the space between mentor and mentee, colleague and friend. The story of courage, loyalty, and justice had reached its satisfying close, leaving behind a calm, glowing legacy of trust and human connection.